Hi, everyone. This is Craig Zelzer from PCDN Global. Delighted to be here with you for our live stream of Season 9, Episode 12. We're getting very close to the end of Season 9. I think we have 2 more episodes to go. We're here today with Edric, who is the CEO and founder of Warm Space, which is a terrific platform for helping facilitate much more human engagement, conversations, and relationship building. Edric has had a long career in tech and has worked for Twitter and Google. Originally is from Indonesia, has been living in Singapore for quite some time, and we met actually in Medellin. So he's been digital nomading as he builds Warm Space with his team, I think for the past 9 months to a year. He's joining us from Lyon, France. If people don't know about the Social Change Career Podcast or PCDN, this episode is supported by the Rotary Peace Fellowship. So it is one of the world's coolest fellowships for impact professionals. So if you're looking for full funding, and I really mean full funding, to do a master's degree or professional certificate, the master's degrees are at one of 6 partner universities around the world in graduate programs related to peace and development, and the professional certificate is focused on peace and development, and you can do that either in Thailand or Uganda. So applications open February 1st. I'll put the link in here. In PCDN, we're a platform connecting change makers to careers of impact, and check us out at pcdn.global. If you're watching us on LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube, please, as we go throughout this session, put your comments in the chat box and let us know where you're watching from, what questions you have, and I'll ask a bunch of questions, but we love to have interaction with wherever you're watching from. So feel free to put your comments or questions, and we'll share them on the screen and also share them with Edric. And then just one other plug, the Social Change Career Podcast, we have about 100 episodes with brilliant innovators from all parts of the world, whether it's tech for social impact, innovative finance, reducing gender-based violence, I think from about 25 countries. So you can find them all on PCDN Global or any of the major podcasting platforms, and we always appreciate reviews. So Edric, thank you so much for joining us from beautiful Lyon, and welcome Abdi from Kenya. He's a very long time friend. Great to see you here. So please let us know, everyone. I'll show your names and comments, but Edric, can you summarize a little bit? We don't have to go over your whole career because that's quite impressive, but what's been the central area or areas that you've been trying to affect change in your career, and how in the world did you go from big tech to a startup and you've done a lot of other startup things, but how did you go from big tech to launching Warm Space to build more human connections using the power of tech?
Yeah, thanks, Craig, and thanks for having me here. So I think, as you mentioned, my career started with big tech, and on the side, while I was working for Twitter and Google, I've always been running like a side projects. Always wanted to create something of my own, even since college time, and I've always been like a very social person, and I think just a couple of years ago, I guess I had a little bit of that burnout and a little bit of quarter life crisis, figuring out what's really there for me. Like, I have achieved a lot in my life, but I also felt quite empty and lonely in the inside, and then kind of stumble upon spirituality, and have always been into self-development. And then at Burning Man in 2019, I realized that what I really crave was deep human connection, and it's something that I've never really prioritized in my life. Even though I was a social butterfly and I had a lot of friends, I realized I've never really had any close friends, and I never prioritized time to be intentional in developing my relationships with them, and just realizing how important it is to my happiness, to meaning, and then also realizing that I want to work on something that's really contributing to something bigger than just myself. I think back then I was still a very ego-driven person, prioritizing significance and success over everything else. So from that realizations, I kind of went back to Singapore with this intention to want to nurture and cultivate authentic relationships in my life, really prioritizing connections and just and building community around my life in Singapore, and just realizing how much of a difference it made in my life in terms of my fulfillment, my happiness, and a sense of belonging and a sense of meaning. And when COVID hit, I kind of put together everything that I've learned in what does it take to cultivate meaningful connections and having this deeper level of intimacy with anyone. And then I facilitated like 30, 50 of this kind of Zoom calls with me facilitating the conversations with all kind of different techniques, from like mindfulness to the conversation cards and different methods. And then realizing that actually people, it's not just me who crave this level of connection, but it's something that everyone craves. Like we all want to be seen and to connect with someone in deeper levels. It's just like for a lot of people, it's hard to access that depth. And I realized like some facilitation, some guidance from a third person actually provides that safety and framework for people to jump into this deeper level of open-hearted space. And that's what kind of birthed the idea of Warm Space. And I think it kind of fits, it hits a lot of the criteria in terms of like what I want next in my kind of career and what I want to do with my life. Like it really kind of scratches my own itch of like craving deep connection. I enjoy the conversations, and I always wanted to be able to have more of this in my life, and helping people to also access this, and then realizing throughout the journey that I'm touching on something that is bigger than what I initially thought. Like just realizing the magnitude of like loneliness and like mental health crisis that we're seeing in the world, and a lot of that is attributed to the disconnection that we're seeing in the world, and how Warm Space is able to kind of heal that disconnection through this facilitation, through the guidance and interactive prompts that we're bringing, creating that space and framework for people to be able to see themselves in others, find the common ground and find that common points, and find that realizing the very universal human experience that we all share. And from that place, developing empathy, compassion, and solving the division and disconnection we're seeing in the world. So I think it's a very natural kind of progress from my career in like big tech to finally working on Warm Space and working on a social impact mission.
Thank you so much, and welcome Baba Thima from Nigeria, Abdi from Kenya, someone from London, Andrew from New York. So I have a million questions, but I'll just ask one more because questions are already starting to come in, and Andrew's making a little comment about Burning Man. So for people who don't know Burning Man, not everybody does, can you just describe like how in the world did you get there? Was 2019 your first time? And like what happened, and were you already having these questions pre-Burning Man that led you to do this radical change, or it happened via Burning Man?
Yeah, so for those who didn't know what Burning Man is, it's a 9-day event. It's people like to call it festival, but I think it's more than that. It's a temporary city in Nevada, in the middle of the desert in the US, where people get to have that permission to just to fully express themselves. And there's this principle of gifting, so there's no concept of money. People are there just contributing their gifts, their talents, and it's just an incredible energy of really positive energy of people being really compassionate and helping each other and like creative. Like you're not inhibited by like the conditioning and expectations from in the matrix, and you get to just be who you are and connect and play from that place, and really connecting with our inner child. That's what I felt, at least, like especially as an adult, we kind of forgot to play and to connect and enjoy each other's company from a very playful, joyful, compassionate place like we used to do when we were young. So I think Burning Man brought that up in me, and I think how I ended up there was it was pure, like random synchronicities. Like I met a friend at a Tony Robbins seminar. She told me about Burning Man, and then I've read, and then at the same time I was reading a book called Stealing Fire by Jamie Wheel, which talks about group flow and then all this elevated state that you get to experience and certain events and situations. And it mentioned Burning Man as such a kind of magical environment where it's a harsh environment, which was part of the what causes the transformation. It's like, you know, the cold at night and then the scorching heat during the day, and then having to build a whole structure by yourself, or with a group of people, and then just experience, and you're in such a vulnerable state, and then from that place, you became very open for help, and you get to build with your own hands, and you got to be really creative. So I think a lot of like different factors combined allow you to experience this group flow and elevated state that kind of takes you out of the ordinary kind of state of mind and see things from this place, a sense of like wonder of our life. So that really intrigued me. And at the same time, my friend kind of like gave me like an opening, like, oh yes, I actually have been to Burning Man 3 times, and we connected really well through the seminar, and it's kind of tagged along with her.
Wonderful. I haven't been to Burning Man yet. I love South by Southwest. This is a totally different event, but it's one of the most wild, interesting, mind-blowing events I've ever been to, and just wandering around and meeting people. So a question, then I'll get to Andrew's question, and please let us know where you're watching from. Feel free to start putting in your comments. So just a very practical question. You are from Sumatra in Indonesia, from a part of Sumatra, and how in the world did you build a career in tech first, and kind of what skills did you develop? And for people who want to work in just tech in general, then we can talk about tech for impact. What is your advice? And did you do remote work, or how did you get from Indonesia to working for global tech companies in Singapore, both in terms of skills and the process? And actually, you have a fan here. Just Andrea says she loves Peruvian. She says she loves warm space. So thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. I think she might be a friend if she's the Andrea there. No, so yeah, good question. So I went to Singapore for university, and I studied information systems. So that kind of gave me an opening, and Singapore was like the hub for a lot of tech companies to have their headquarters in Asia. And how I kind of got into Twitter was kind of through, I would say, almost by luck or some sort of serendipity, because I was running my startups back then, and then this was my last year in university, figuring out what to do next, and then I just stumbled upon this this random competition they had. They call it a young promising leader, and in order to get in, you have to kind of tweet and get kind of endorsement from. They had this like 7-second video app back then before TikTok, and
It's
yeah,
called
Vine. Yes. You're muted, but I could hear you. I could.
Yeah, Vine.
It's Vine. And then you had to kind of pitch in 140 seconds, like in the panel of judges, like an American Idol style, like why. And then you pick a topic on something you're passionate about. I think I was talking about like interchange or transformation, and through that I got selected for an internship at Twitter, and which is really it was an incredible opportunity for me, because I think I was okay on paper, like academics wise, but I would think that my resume will be like sufficient to get myself into like big tech companies like that. So I think also, I guess like the advice for a lot of your audience here is looking for Korean tech, like always look for backdoors, because having worked at Google as well, like these tech companies like receive like thousands of applications like around the world, and unless you have like a really outstanding CV because of your experiences, or you've been of internship in like big tech companies, it's really hard to get the attention from the recruiters. So there's a lot of backdoors from like networking events, connecting with people that personally that from the tech companies, or like the random competition that might held, which Twitter did, and then landing an internship, and from there converting into a full-timer will be a much more it's not that it's impossible to go through like the main door, but this is for a lot of people. This is a smarter ways to open doors for yourself. So yeah, that's at least that's how I got in. And then in terms of tech for impact, I really believe in the potential of tech in scaling impact, because I think that's what really tech is kind of meant to do. Like through internet, we're able to kind of connect from different continents, and the audience is able to connect with you, and like we're able to reach this level of scale that wasn't previously possible, and it's just going to continue to accelerate. So it's just a matter of like the intention. What do we use? What do we use and design tech for? And I think a lot of the negative reaction or relationship toward with tech is just caused by just poor design or the poor intention with a lot of the big tech companies you see or tech products you see in the Silicon Valley today. They're all, a lot of it unfortunately is driven by profit and then this late stage capitalistic system, and that's why it causes a lot of like suffering and health deterioration and well-being on well-being and mental health for a lot of people. But I think tech has just a big potential and there's a lot of good examples that tech has helped to, that the kind of good that tech has helped to create that wouldn't have been possible before, like what's happening in Ukraine, the donation that was made through crypto, what we're able, the deep connection that we're able to create at scale through warm space. What we're really creating at warm space essentially is just in democratizing access to inner healing. To get a therapist, to get a coach is really costly for a lot of people, people who are not at least in the middle class. And what we're enabling is through our interactive prompts and the facilitation that was automated. It makes it possible for you to access this level of therapeutic healing without having the real facilitator or therapist to be there, by just tapping into the power like peer-to-peer counseling or support. So there's just some examples of like how tech is really can be really crucial, important, or beneficial in creating impact. And I think for me it's quite natural as I kind of worked on in my own personal self-development. There's the pyramid, the Maslow pyramid of needs, and how once you've reach self-actualization and you fulfill all of your needs, and then what else is out there is just I realize at least to reach a sense of fulfillment and meaning, I need to be in service for others. And it's just natural for me, since I have been in tech and I see the potential in tech, then for me to figure out what are the ways that I could do good for others through tech. So it's the same through warm space. When I realized, wow, the power of like having someone to guide you and facilitate you to have these conversations that could be really healing and therapeutic for you, then what are the ways that I could scale this so that I don't have to be in the phone call to facilitate or guide the conversations for you, and anyone can access this. So to me, it's always been tech enables scale, and this is an engine, and what we put into that engine essentially will produce more of that. I guess that's how I kind of got into like tech and impact.
Okay, thanks. So there's one LinkedIn I find to be the most positive platform. So I've connected with so many interesting people, and so just making a plug, there's a great organization. You can find a link more on the LinkedIn chat, but a group 100% volunteer. They don't take any donations, of just people teaching English one-on-one or in groups to Ukrainian refugees or migrants. And they will help train you. So if you're a native English speaker or strong English speaker, please check it out. So and again, it's free for everybody. So it's a great example of using the power of tech for people to connect. So one more question before I get to Andrew's question. Just can you summarize quickly, actually two questions there. So one is like, what did you do at Twitter and Google? And then when people ask you about building a career, let's say at a leading tech company, even though there's mass layoffs right now at the big ones, small ones are hiring still a lot. Do you recommend going for university, doing like a boot camp, self-taught, and obviously it depends on what aspect of tech, if you're a coder or marketing or product manager, but what is your general thoughts on what did you do skill-wise pre-warm space, and how do you recommend others get the set of skills to be competitive?
So I was doing digital marketing at Twitter. I was marketing the marketing tools that Twitter adds to the small businesses in APAC. And at Google, I was doing something similar, but on the sales side, helping startups in Southeast Asia grow with Google Marketing Solutions. And it's funny because I didn't study marketing really at my university, and which kind of shows, I guess, the skill that you really need to develop is the skill to learn. Because I picked up marketing along the way as I was building my startup at university. So to promote my social startup back then, I had to kind of I had to run some ads and I had to learn digital marketing. So a lot of the things are self-taught. So I think in order to in terms of what kind of skills that you need to learn to get into to build a career in tech, especially what people need to understand is tech is a very fast-paced environment, and whatever when I was at Google, every month there's new products or new ways of working with the products, and it's something that you have to keep up with yourself. And even and how it works at Google is there's just a ton of resources and tons of links, and we had to be really independent in ways of learning these resources and finding the connection. So I think the number one skill, especially with the ever changing landscape at work right now, is just learning how to learn, and learn how to rely on yourself. I think one thing that I took away from studying IT, it was how we learned to be independent. How when we solve problems, we have to Google it and find things on the forum. What's the right kind of method to solve a coding problem and all of that. So and the good news is there's a ton of resources these days, and I feel like people don't really need to even go to universities anymore if they're really clear with what they want to build or the career that they want to have, because all the skills, all this knowledge, people can easily pick up online. There's a lot of courses, a lot of certifications, and I think what's more important is collecting real life experiences. This can be through finding online gigs, doing a freelance job, or even a non-paid internship, because these are all the real life skills that people will really value, and especially at startups or big tech companies. And Google, specifically, I know they value quantifiable achievements a lot. So if you could tell someone that, hey, I had this experience growing this startup's revenue by 30% month over month, that will speak a volume to your credibility as a professional, more than what school do you go to or what do you study. So I think aim for build your skills and learn how to learn the skills quickly and effectively, and then go get a real life experiences as soon as possible, and start kind of having this in your under your belt.
Okay, thank you so much. So Andrew has a question. How many he's at Baruch College in New York City. So, and asking how many internships or job opportunities do you find within tech, so, and advocating for a particular cause. So I think what he's asking is, do you see a lot of job opportunities in tech for social impact? And within that, and if you look at PCDN, we have a meta job board, and we have a job board is quite good, but then we have a meta job board divided by sectors of the best job boards. So you can find a lot in tech for social impact, whether you're a coder, a marketer, product manager, communications. There's more and more jobs. But where do you see the growth in kind of tech for social impact? And is there more demand for marketing skills, or or just depends on sector and geographic location?
Yeah, I think it really depends, and I would say I think it's becoming more and more inevitable that tech companies will have to put social impact into their mission or product, or at least consider it somehow, just because if you look at the trends, I was looking at the study of how Gen Z really values mission driven companies with a mission, and they with the recent COVID situation, and people realizing that they really want something that gives them meaning and gives them purpose, and I think it's inevitable that a lot of companies, tech or not, will have to find ways to be in service for something bigger to be able to attract talents. And for tech specifically, I think, there's a lot of ways to create impact, social impact, even if you're not servicing the users, the end users directly. Like even within Google, for example, such a big companies, like the amount of the way we use our devices or the storage of the data can make such a big difference even within the Google employees itself. So I know there's a lot of people who specifically work on the sustainability within the organization, as an example. Or I was also working on well-being programs within my teams, our global teams of like 300 people, and you might not like reach the kind of scale that you see typically with like social impact focused startups or organizations with the very focused product, but you are still creating impact within the companies. Like I was helping kind of improve the well-being of like hundreds of people still within the companies, as an example. So I just kind of want to expand the scope a little bit and not only think about creating social impact for the end users, but there are also many ways you could do that within the organization. And to do this, usually there are not that many impact driven roles within the organization. So a lot of these are like side projects. So just wanted to be realistic and say this is something that you have to do on the sides on top of your core jobs. At least that's what I had to do. So of course, if you're looking for something really specific on like impact-driven roles, then I would suggest target the specific companies that you want to work for, that you know that are already serving this missions. There's so many out there, especially the green tech space is growing. The mental health space is really growing in tech as well. The awareness is growing by a lot. So I think just Google, LinkedIn, there's people, and there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Thank you so much. So Abhimola just made a comment, also thinking about ESG investing, and there was a fascinating report that came out about 4 months ago that the climate impact of the huge amount of money that tech companies have, just where they park their money, and they're about like Google, Netflix, Amazon, has more of a negative carbon impact than their server power. So, so there's, so I'm doing a course on finance. I'll talk about it, but like there's so many areas to do this, whether you're working in the finance or the graphic design or the communication or the building. And as Edric said, if you're in a place, because you pivoted from marketing to doing wellness inside. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit how you made that pivot? Did you have to advocate? Your bosses let you do this? And then we'll get into more questions. And another comment just came in. Okay, so prioritizing, but how did you make a pivot from, let's say, marketing to help users use the tools to actually thinking about the well-being of teams?
Yeah, I think it was quite natural. I think that's the perk of being in bigger companies, that like they have like space to prioritize things like you employ the wellness and well-being of the employees, and it was just an initiative there was a couple people who really care a lot about well-being within the organization that I was in within Google, and I kind of volunteered myself to be to advocate for Asia and to start leading the program for Asia as well. So I think a lot of these opportunities you kind of have to create yourself or like advocate for yourself. Sometimes the opportunities will come to you, but a lot of the times you could also create positions or roles or initiatives that did not already exist within the company, and everyone has that ability to create change that and create opportunities that don't exist before. So I guess this is like the 2 cents as well. If you see something that doesn't exist yet and you're passionate about a change that you want to create, then just go make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So you actually have an offer. I can put you in. This is from Abimola. I think we're secondary connections, but she's saying if you want any assistance thinking about ESG for Wormspace. So Abimola, if you message me, I'll put you in contact and see if there is any interest. So one question is, and again, we have lots of comments. Feel free to also put in your questions because I don't want to be the only one asking questions. But thank you everyone for participating from around the world. There is a lot of corporate greenwashing and there's a lot of wellness washing, where it's like, oh, our employees should be happy, but, maybe we're working them 70 hours. Think of what Elon Musk is doing to Twitter, because I'm a huge, Twitter has been wonderful for me, but I actually had Tesla stock. I sold it and just discussed, like, I didn't like him, but now I'm even more disgusted. So I sold Tesla stock and I just don't, I still am using Twitter, debating about whether to try Post or Mastodon or others, but like there's so much, even corporations that claim to do good often are still well washing. So like, how do you differentiate? I guess two questions, like how do you differentiate if someone's thinking about working for a nonprofit or a foundation or corporation? What do you advise them to look at to see if they really are treating people as holistic human beings that have lives outside of work? And then how are you embedding well-being, not just in the product of Wellspring, but among your distributed team?
Yeah, so I guess because of what we do, we have to practice what we preach, right? And then we practice authentic relating, nonviolent communication, and really treating everyone in the team, as a wholesome human being, not just a coworker. And there's a ton of studies that have shown how like the happiness of your employee and your teams have a lot to do with how much like do they feel connected to the people within their team. Of course, there's a lot of other factors like do you feel that you're well paid and like are you working on something that gives you meaning, but like connection is such a huge part in making someone feel like they belong in the company, and that also translates directly to eventually what these companies care about, like performance, productivity, creativity, innovation. So I think the study has kind of shown that it is something that every company, like how you treat your companies and how they how employees treat each other beyond just coworkers, having close friends, for example, or having like close friends with like a big commitment, but like as friends, do you feel like you have friends in your team or in your company that says a lot in how engaged you will be within the organization as well. So at Wormspace, we practice a lot of different things. Like, for example, every 2 weeks we have a bi-weekly circle where we get to share appreciation for one another. But also the second half, which is more powerful, is for us to surface any tension, difficulties, or even challenges kind of could be directed toward a specific person, but it would create like a safe space for people to be able to share what they're going through. And through that, we kind of create this feeling that we're in this together. Like not everything has to be rosy, and that's okay. And we're in this together. And we create a culture where it's okay to talk about problems, challenges, and to be direct about it, and not to avoid or try to like go around a certain difficult situation. So I think like the way you treat the teams will say a lot about how you plan to carry the company. So if you can't treat your teams and your employees and coworkers with respect, with empathy and compassion, and have very little confidence or conviction that they will do much good to humanity or to the users that they're serving. So I think there's a huge kind of correlation between how employees feel within the company and how leadership treats their teams and employees with what they're actually trying to serve, the real outcome they're trying to produce within their company.
Wonderful. Do you have a name for? I mean, are you creating your own team process based on learning and obviously reading and integrating other ideas? Or are you adopting, like, do you have a name for the process that you're trying to embed within Warm Space, or it's kind of an amalgamation of other ideas and processes?
It's an amalgamation of a lot of ideas. I think it's also not something perfect. It's something that we're still constantly iterating and changing all the time. So we had a in-person offsite for the first time 2 months ago, and we kind of just surface everything that has been working, like, and have an open discussion of like, what do people feel about certain things, or the way we communicate it. Like, is it okay to bring up personal stuff on Slack, for example? So I drew a lot of inspiration from Google as well, for sure. I think one thing that Google does really well is like really developing this culture where everyone feels like they belong, they're supported, and people can collaborate. So like making sure people feel appreciated, and like creating a space where people can feel like they can bring new ideas to work, feel safe to share mistakes. So there's definitely a lot of different inspirations that I draw from.
Okay, so Kalina just said thank you again. That she's one of two people who founded the effort to help provide free English training to people impacted by the war in Ukraine. So please reach out to Kalina or see the form that she shared with me. And then Abimbola shared this, just saying that kind of what we're talking about, the wholeness of the person. That it's not just about tokenism or greenwashing or purpose washing, or, I mean, there's so many washings now. So two questions, and again, lots of comments are coming, but please feel free to put in questions. We have maybe 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. So two questions for you. One is, you've been doing remote work yourself and traveling the world. We met in Medellin, then you went off to Peru, now you're in France. So one is, you as a person, can you share a little bit about what it's been like to be mostly remote and traveling, and the good and the bad? So for people who are thinking about it, and there now are about 40 to 50 countries, not all of them have officially legalized, but they're coming close to legalizing digital nomad visas. So Colombia has just legalized it. A friend is behind that, where you can often stay. Some places you can stay for 5 years as long as you have a certain level of income, even become a resident. Some places it's 1 or 2 years. So just a little bit like how it's been for you, and what you would recommend for others who might want to think about it, both logistically and practically. And then the second thing, since a little bit about the size of Warm Space, and since you're a distributed team, like, what does that mean for you, since you just had your first offsite 2 months ago? Like, how are you, like, what are the wonders of working across time zones and cultures, and what are the challenges?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been fantastic. Like, I think being able to, work on a mission and build a startup while traveling the world and see the world and changing the environments all the time, and also the connections that I made as I was traveling. Like, I connected to you at Medellin, and then I got to speak in Istanbul in front of at a high school, and then had the person almost invested in my company. So I think it just opened up so many doors, and yeah, like personally, I also just love adventures and like seeing the world, and it just allows me to have almost like not sacrificing like my personal interests to travel and all of that, while still building like a company full time. So it's been fantastic, and also like in terms of talents, that also opens so many doors. We don't have to be restricted to like local talents, and just kind of welcome anyone who feels called to work with us, who feels like they resonate with our mission, and the number of people who have been reaching out to us because they resonate with what we're doing at Warm Space, and how we are actually able to consider them to join us because we're a distributed team, was just a wonderful feeling. It doesn't feel restricted and contrived, but it feels like expansive. So there's just the level of possibilities that remote working or remote team is enabling. It's just fantastic. While of course it comes with challenges as well. So I'm currently craving like some stability, actually. So of course, like every time you change locations, like it takes time to adjust to a new routine and to meet new people. So it's just like it takes a lot of energy. So I also kind of been doing more like slow travel mostly. Like I will stay in one place for like 3 months. So in that for at least 3 months, and some places I stay longer. But at least that allows me some time to really get to know the people there, build my network, and not just make connection with like digital nomads who I'll never see again after spending 1 week for like traveling together. So, but right now I think I'm at a place where I want to be based somewhere like a little bit longer. Might not, and still having that freedom to choose where does that base is gonna be. I think that's still fantastic. Like I don't have to stay in where I was living in, and the world becomes my oyster. Looking at countries with the visa and regulations that truly support my conditions. I'm Indonesian. I don't have the same kind of travel privileges as the Americans or like countries from more developed countries. So like looking at countries that kind of support the visa with the kind of situation I have. And for warm space, I think also challenges. At one point, we were operating across 3 different continents, almost 4 as well, including Africa. And of course, finding common time to meet is always like a pain. So we often have to like compromise. Some people in certain continents have to wake up earlier or take evening calls, but I think we found a ways and a rhythm where we don't have to meet as often or get really good at asynchronous communication, sending voice memo or like establishing processes, using Notion to jot down minutes and document things. So yeah, time coordination, I think is still a challenge. And I think and having our outside last 2 months ago made us realize actually like in-person connection is still very valuable. Actually, having that kind of spur of the moment discussion because you just happen to be next to them, and this time they get to spend unintentionally because like these organic conversations that happen, because online you have to be very intentional about everything. So we decided that if we got to grow a business to a business where we could afford to do this, we will like to do like a quarterly in-person offsite. So where we could, and everyone still agrees that we want to work remotely, that everyone enjoys the freedom and flexibility, but we also want to have that in-person connection that's still very valuable in our relationships.
Okay. So I have 3 more questions. I'll be quick, and then a couple of questions have come, and then we'll finish up on warm space. So one, where was the offsite? Just very practical. And how big is the warm space team, and how many different countries or identities are represented?
Yeah, we're the offsite was in Utrecht in the Netherlands. So there are 9 of us now, 7 nationalities. So we got people who are based in Thailand, who in Africa, in Netherlands, and nationalities. So we got Americans, Dutch, Indonesian. We're a Singapore registered company. We don't have a Singaporean yet. Ironically, but yeah, spread across continents with many different nationalities, which kind of
go ahead,
yeah, it
sorry.
just represents what warm space is all about, because it's about the unity and seeing everyone as just like human being, and despite where you're from, what culture you're from, like we're all just one. So I think having this kind of global kind of family and representations in the team just is just super aligned with what we're building and our mission as well.
Okay. Welcome, Prince. We have a lot of people from Africa today, so great. I hope Warm Spring goes across Africa. Obviously, we have US and other places. Second thing is, are you hiring, or when you have hired, like what makes the difference between someone you interview? I mean, you might not feel comfortable sharing this, but if you do feel comfortable, like how many applications do you get if you're publicly advertising? You're getting 20, 300, and then what is your advice, whether it's from Warm Space or other places, for job seekers? Like what makes a difference when if you're using an automated applicant tracking system or looking as a human, like what makes an application and a candidate stand out, and the difference between being interviewed and potentially hired?
We're not currently hiring, but when we did, I think even when we're not like publicly advertising it, our users who will come across our website and then will like reach out, because I think that's a really cool thing about working on like social impact or something really big that everyone can really resonate with. People feel called to just want to be part of you naturally, and we've been very grateful and fortunate because of that. And I guess in terms of like advice for kind of when you're applying for jobs, I think yeah, at one point we got like, you know, for a role I could get like, you know, 50, 100 applicants, so, and it will take a lot of time for me to really go through each of the applications. So I think actually as surface levels as it is, I think the design of your CV makes a lot of difference. When I see lots of CVs with just like lots of words, and especially after having like after having reviewed like lots of like resumes, like I got really tired. So like some design colors and like proper or like organization of the headings and everything makes a difference. Like it sparks a different feeling in me, and I'm also like a more like a feeling person as well. And it speaks about like who you are as a person, like the type of personality that you have through the expression of yourself in the design of the CV. So don't go with like a typical word template. Be as creative as you can. And also, I think speaking to the why you resonate with the mission, especially if you're applying for social impact positions, um, we are looking for someone who's really passionate about the mission that we're serving, and we want to know that this person is in for a long time, because we don't plan to sell Lawrence space or make a quick exit, because we're really solving a really big problem in the world, and we want someone who's as committed and dedicated to the mission as we are. So as stating a few lines on the CV or on the message to say why a mission that you're of this company that you're applying for is literally you're connecting to it so deeply will make a difference in having in believing that you're really in it mainly for the impact than everything else. So I think that makes a difference, and I think personal outreach also makes a big difference. So seeing how just through like a few lines, I could already kind of tell the way we might communicate, especially as a remote team. Like communication is such a critical piece in the way we collaborate. So that could give me a sign of like whether we'll be able to communicate or collaborate well together in a remote environment, and also tells me who you are as a person. So so personal outreach, personal message also makes a difference in the evaluation of the application.
Okay, wonderful. So our next podcast will be December 8th, Confessions of an Impact Headhunter, with Paul Braloff, the co-founder of Shortlist. They're amazing. So you can find the link if you go to my LinkedIn page. So my last question, then I'll do a couple of questions that have come in, and then we'll wrap up. So just currently, what are you working on learning, or what are you enjoying playing with? Like whether it's a Netflix show, reading a book, or you're upskilling, like, you know, whether it's fun or work, like what are you enjoying or learning or doing like outside of work right now?
Outside of work, I've been dabbling into the Web3 space for a bit. So I just enjoy reading kind of and learning things in that space. I'm also still big into self-development. So I subscribe to Mind Valley. It's a platform with a lot of self-development courses, currently learning about tapping into my intuition better with the Jason Siva method. And for fun, I'm looking into DJing actually. So I'm gonna pick up a course on that very soon as well, and I go to a few kind of like dance and like kind of authentic relating or spirituality workshops as well.
Amazing. So, I mean, I DJ'd a friend of mine's 40th party when I was living in Sarajevo. It was like my dream. And I have a secret dream, you know, because salsa is very popular in Colombia. And I met Catalina. We met doing our PhDs, but we fell in love through salsa. You know, that I have a secret dream of doing a salsa group called El Gringo de Cali. I don't think it's going to happen, but So a question has come in. Let me just bring this up. So we'll finish with a few questions about warm space. So just, I'm not sure which user this is, but is for users, like individuals, I mean, both, if you can talk a little bit about both the individual users and business users, like how do they engage with warm space and does it cost free? Like what's your pricing model?
Yeah, so Workspace is free, absolutely free to use for individual users. You can just log in, schedule a time, and just connect with any other regular users for free and just go through the sessions. And for businesses, we're actually launching an enterprise product real soon, and with the same aim to bring more humanity and compassion and empathy at workplaces for the reasons I already mentioned before. And we're still experimenting with the pricing model, but we're looking at $1 a day per employee, which is less than like a Starbucks, but I think it's a valuable investment that every company needs to make in each person that they have in the team.
Okay. How can people best help you in your work? And I forgot to mention your podcast. I'm going blank in the title, but both your podcast or your, whether it's social impact or other work, like how can people best help Warm Space? Like what are you looking for in terms of users or promotion or other podcasts?
Yeah, my podcast is called Beyond the Matrix. It's been like in hiatus for a while. But for Warm Space, well, yeah, if you we'd love for you to check it out, give us feedback, and if you have creative ways that you think we can grow the community and the platform, we always, because the mission is always to like reach as many people as possible, because we really believe the impact we're creating. And if you know any organizations that might benefit from a little bit of injection of humanity and genuine connection in their workplaces, also let us know. We're looking for kind of companies to beta test the new product with.
So how would you define, so imagine that you're pitching whoever's watching this, or not pitching, I don't like that word because it's too high pressure, but you're saying why they might want to engage with Warm Space, particularly to, whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit or a foundation, like how would you summarize why an organization might want to consider using Warm Space?
So, well, I really believe like connection is the foundation to everything good in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of us are not really good at cultivating genuine, meaningful connection in our lives or at work. And so Warm Space is kind of like the vehicle that has all the relational sciences and and research and philosophy and psychology that's been kind of incorporated into a flow or a session, that all you need to do is just get your people into the vehicle and follow the instruction, and in the end they'll feel this genuine intimate connection and closeness, connectedness, that bring them closer together, and also through that like kind of brings lots of like healing and self-discovery and new perspectives to that person. Like 80% of our users felt better, had experienced increase in well-being and experienced deep connectedness with their partners at the end of a session. So so it works. And so I think any organizations or people who are looking to bring more connectedness to their people, bringing more creativity, expression, safety, trust within their teams or for yourself. Warm Space has it figured out. You just have to jump on the board with us.
Okay, very cool. And then do you have any, I mean, obviously you're still starting to beta test with organizations, any examples of how using Warm Space, I mean, there's the reported change that employees or people would say, but that using Warm Space has led to a change in some kind of organizational dynamics, or it's too soon to have that data?
It's too soon to have that data. That's why we're looking to prove and validate with numbers through the tests. But we're working with a partner who has been doing this manually in person for like a decade, and he's seen the kind of changes, especially in like a more industrial companies like factory workers, for example, where like trust with each other can make or break like the things on the chain of like the process, and all the mistakes that they make could create like really dangerous situations. Like having this like trusting your coworkers and building this level of engagement and connectedness could make a big difference in the not just like company's performance, but like with like the culture within the team, and the trust that they have with each other. So we're kind of just incorporating the design that they have used in the experience into a product that can be scaled to everyone in the employee in the organizations.
So Ambimbola just is, looking to connect. And my last question, then we'll wrap up because I know you have lots of things to do, is, we had Friendsgiving. We did both Thanksgiving and Friendsgiving. So we had Friendsgiving a few weeks before actual Thanksgiving with friends, and all of us live here. This was mostly foreigners, some with Colombians. We all kind of gave up the American dream, if you want to call it that, and chose a different path. Obviously, that's a privilege, and like I still teach some at Georgetown, but I decided to quit because my intuition was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to do PCDN and take the risk. And we don't make a lot of money. We make enough to live, and then and I like not having any bosses and a freedom and autonomy and all that. But it was a really hard decision, and so it sounds like you had something similar. And obviously, we all need to pay bills, and so there needs to be a certain level of financial security or anticipated security to be able to make that jump from something stable to something maybe risky. But what is your advice for people who are, because we do a lot of career coaching, we talk to people all over the world, and I've been through this multiple times myself, like they know they don't want to keep doing what they're doing, but like, and my process, like I drove myself and everyone else crazy. And for me, meditation, writing, journaling, talking to friends, and also using, there's a great app. I don't have any financial stake, like rank order decision making, where you put values and look at. But like, what do you advise people who are at that crossroads where they don't want to keep doing what they're doing, and they know they need to do something else, but how do they either decide to do it or make that jump? Because it's really hard.
Oh yeah, it's hard. It took me a while to finally kind of arrive in this decision, like having to kind of let go of a big brand like Google to finally work on Workspace full time. Also, like what I'm doing is, like you said, it's like a privilege, right? Like to be able to work on what you're passionate about and kind of can still make a living out of this. I think having raised fund and all that really makes a difference. So I guess in people who are in that transition, eventually we need to have the courage to we can be 100% sure about something. Like I don't think it's not something like that exists. I think you get to the point where you feel like there is enough upside and likelihood that something that you're working on or aspire to work on will succeed, and have the courage to make the jump. I think eventually just have to get to that stage, because the more the more we wait, the less likely we like want to kind of make the jump. So I think we just have to have like a kind of cutoff point. Or for me, it's less of that strategic planning, but more of like how I feel. So it started off with some like a hunch and like a desire. And I think everyone has that, right? Like they have that desire to make a bigger change, to pursue something bigger, work on something of their own. And I would say like hold on to that intention, like keep it close to you, and keep working, like work on see if there are ways, like a minimum ways for you to be able to work on that idea without having to quit your full-time job. Because like you said, Craig, like everyone needs to pay the bill, and ideally people get to work in an environment that doesn't squeeze them till the end, where they still have like space, energy, and time to work on like side hustle. And that's what I was doing. As I was sharing for like years, I I had like a side hustle for like 5 years until I landed on Workspace, something that I feel like, wow, this is really speaking to me. Like there's a huge potential for this getting huge traction based on the feedback from our users. I have a support and connection in Singapore that could potentially fund me to actually work on this, and where I can raise money from. And then eventually I decided to follow my gut to make the jump. But it's not coming out of nowhere where I just like, oh, I just want quit and like work on this full time. But it's really it's the seed has been planted for a while, and then watching the signals around me through the validation that I've been doing and the network, then that's what kind of gave me the confidence to finally make the jump.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, very similar thing. PCN was a side hustle for many years, and eventually I couldn't do 2 full-time jobs anymore. So there was enough substance there that I knew it was time to switch, because, but I got depressed for a while. Like, it's hard. So like, everybody has to make their own decisions. So someone just gave one question, and I guess we can finish here. So if someone is testing out Warmspace and they're not a current user, how should people give you feedback? Message you on LinkedIn, Twitter, send an email?
Yeah, you could email me or message me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I think you can just search for my name and you'll easily find me.
Thank you so much, Edric, for taking time out of your busy schedule and taking a break from wonderful Lyon, France. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. So please check out the 100 other episodes, rate our podcast, check out Warmspace, and sign up. And if you represent or work for an organization that might want to beta test it, get in touch with Edric. And also, our next podcast will be December 8th. So please join us. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks, everyone.